Walk through a contemporary art gallery in Paris, New York, or London, and you might pass a photograph of a supermarket shelf. It is a mundane, high-definition image of instant noodles, row upon row of red and yellow packaging, a temple to mass production. You glance at it, perhaps critiquing the composition, and move on. But then a feeling of unease pricks the back of your neck. You stop, you look back. The shelf is watching you. There, amidst the plastic cups and sodium-rich broth, is a human eye. Then a nose contours out of a noodle brand logo. A shoulder emerges from the barcode. Suddenly, the entire image shifts, the optical illusion shattering to reveal a man standing right there, painted into the merchandise so perfectly that he has ceased to be a person and has become the product itself. This is the magic and the tragedy of Liu Bolin. In a world where everyone is screaming to be seen, posting every meal and moment to a digital void, Liu Bolin chose the opposite path. He became the invisible man, not to hide, but to show us exactly how the world swallows us whole. His story is not merely a biography of an artist. It is a ghost story about modern China, a fable about consumerism, and a testament to the sheer physical endurance of the human spirit. It begins not with fame, but with a bulldozer. To understand why a man would choose to erase himself, you must first understand what it feels like to be told you do not exist. Liu Bolin was born in 1973 in Shandong province of China, a coastal region steeped in history. He grew up in the shadow of the Cultural Revolution's aftermath, a time when the individual was nothing and the collective was everything. From a young age, he felt the weight of a society that demanded uniformity. He was a talented student, eventually earning his MFA from the Central Academy of Fine Arts in Beijing in 2001, studying sculpture under the master Sui Zhangguo. But the Beijing of the early 2000s was a brutal place for a dreamer. It was a city undergoing a violent metamorphosis, shedding its old skin to prepare for the 2008 Olympics. It was a gold rush, but not for everyone. For Liu, life was a series of closed doors. Despite his degree, he found himself drifting, working odd jobs, sometimes as an art teacher, sometimes as an assistant. He lived, as he later described in interviews, at the bottom of society. He felt redundant. This word, redundant, is crucial. In a rapidly capitalizing economy, if you were not producing wealth, you were excess inventory. You were a ghost in the machine. He settled in the Soja village on a vibrant, chaotic artist commune on the outskirts of Beijing. It was Asia's largest congregation of artists, a sanctuary where sculptors, painters, and photographers lived in cheap, drafty studios, fueling each other's creativity. For Liu, it was the first place that felt like home. It was a place where redundant people found purpose. But the city was hungry, the land Soja stood on was valuable, and the government viewed this unregulated hive of bohemians with suspicion. November 16th, 2005. The date is etched into Liu Bolin's psyche like a scar. It wasn't just a bad day, it was an erasure. The Beijing government, citing lack of permits, but largely driven by a desire to sanitize the city and reclaim land, sent in the demolition crews. There was no negotiation, there was no debate, there were only the engines. Liu stood and watched as bulldozers tore through the brick and mortar of the Soja village. The sound was deafening, the cracking of walls, the shattering of glass, the dust rising in a choking cloud to blot out the gray Beijing sun. In hours, his sanctuary was reduced to a pile of rubble. He was not just homeless, he was nullified. The state had looked at his life, his art, and his community and decided it mattered less than the dirt it stood on. In the days following the destruction, a fury grew inside him. But in China, you cannot scream at the government. You cannot stand in front of a tank. We know how that ends. Protest is a dangerous game. Liu needed a way to scream without making a sound. He needed a protest that looked like silence. He returned to the ruins of his studio. The walls were gone, leaving only broken piles of bricks and the open sky. He didn't pick up a protest sign. He picked up a paintbrush. He asked his assistants to paint him, not to make him look like a hero, but to make him look like the rubble. They painted his face the color of the gray dust. They painted his military-style jacket to match the broken bricks with them. They painted his pants to blend into the debris. He stood there for hours, freezing in the November chill, statue still. When the camera shutter finally clicked, the result was terrifying. In the photograph, Liu Bolin was gone. He was there, but he was transparent. A phantom haunting the wreckage of his own life. This was the birth of hiding in the city. It was a silent accusation. By disappearing into the ruins, he was saying, "You treat me as if I am not here. Fine, I will show you what that looks like." As the photos from Soja village began to circulate, the art world took notice. But few understood the physical agony required to create them. To the casual observer, Liu's work might look like digital trickery, a clever Photoshop overlay. It is, in fact, a feat of extreme physical endurance. Liu calls his process a sniper's technique, a battle of patience, stillness, and precision. The process begins with the selection of the site. It is never random. Whether it is a wall covered in communist slogans or a monument to capitalism, the background is the antagonist. Liu stands in front of it, wearing a heavy, starch-stiffened uniform, usually a Chinese military tunic, chosen not for fashion, but because the fabric holds paint well and covers the skin. Then the snipers go to work. These are his assistants, painters trained in the same realist schools as Liu. For 3, 4, sometimes 10 hours, Liu must stand completely motionless. He enters a meditative trance, a state of nothingness, while his team paints his body to match the perspective of the camera lens exactly. The physical toll is immense. He has stood in freezing temperatures until his limbs went numb. He has stood in the sweltering heat while toxic paints clogged his pores. In interviews, he has revealed the humble secret to his survival, a simple lady's facial cleansing mask applied to his face before the paint, a thin barrier saving his skin from chemical burns. If he twitches, the illusion breaks. If he shifts his weight, the lines of the background no longer match the lines of his chest. And the day is ruined. He becomes a living statue, sacrificing his comfort to become a canvas. This surrender of the body is the core of his philosophy. In the West, we are taught that the individual is paramount. We stand out, We contrast, but Liu's work reflects a darker, more ancient Taoist concept twisted by modern authoritarianism. Tianren He Yi, the unity of heaven and man. But in Liu's world, heaven is the state, the economy, the environment, and man must dissolve into it to survive. As the Hiding in the City series evolved, Liu moved from the ruins of the artist village to the shiny, terrifying surfaces of the new China. He realized that the demolition of his home was just one symptom of a larger disease. A society where human beings were being consumed by their own development. He walked into the supermarkets. In one of his most famous sub-series, Liu stands in front of shelves stocked with soft drinks, instant noodles, and processed snacks. The colors are vibrant, almost violent, saturated reds, neon greens, electric blues. He is painted to match the labels. On the surface, it is a pop art masterpiece, but dig deeper and you find the cracks in the facade. This series coincided with China's massive food safety scandals, melamine in infant formula, phosphorus in instant noodles, cancerous chemicals in cooking oil. By hiding in the food, Liu was asking a terrifying question. What are we eating? And more importantly, in a consumer culture, are we the customers or are we the product? He disappeared into a pile of coal, commenting on the pollution choking Beijing's lungs. He disappeared into a wall of logs, a silent elegy for the forests chopped down to fuel the economic dragon. Then came the series Laid Off between 1998 and 2000. Nearly 21 million Chinese state workers lost their jobs as the country pivoted to a market economy. They were cast aside, their iron rice bowls shattered. Liu found 6 of these workers and painted them into the walls of the factories that had fired them. Above their heads, a faded slogan from the Cultural Revolution read, "The communist period is the thriving force behind our cause." The irony was razor sharp. These workers, who had given their lives to the party, were now erased by the very progress they had built. Liu didn't just hide himself anymore. He helped others disappear to show the world who was already invisible. As his fame grew, Liu Bolin went global. He traveled to Paris, New York, Venice, and London, but he didn't go as a tourist. He went as a mirror. In the West, he found new backgrounds to disappear into, and his work shifted from a critique of the Chinese state to a critique of global civilization. He hid in front of the charging bull on Wall Street, dissolving into the symbol of financial volatility that holds the world hostage. He hid in the canals of Venice, merging with the water to highlight the fragility of a sinking city. In 2015, he turned his lens to the humanitarian crisis in Europe. In the Migrants series, specifically a piece at the Lido Verde in Sicily, he did not just paint himself. He posed with migrants, survivors of the deadly Mediterranean crossings. They lay on the sand, their bodies painted to match the beach. Here, the invisibility was no longer a metaphor for political oppression, but a literal description of how the West viewed refugees. We see them on the news, but we look right through them. We treat them as part of the landscape, a problem to be managed, not people to be saved. Liu forced the viewer to hunt for the humanity in the sand. There is a profound irony in Liu Bolin's life. The better he got at disappearing, the more famous he became. The Invisible Man became a global brand. He gave a TED Talk in 2013 standing on a red circle in California, explaining to the world's elite why he erased himself. He was no longer the redundant artist shivering in a demolished village. He was a superstar. This success brought complicated questions. The fashion world, obsessed with the visual, fell in love with him. He collaborated with Moncler, painting himself into snowy landscapes wearing expensive down jackets. He worked with Annie Leibovitz. He was commissioned by Harper's Bazaar. Critics might ask, does working for luxury brands blunt the edge of the knife? How can you critique consumerism while disappearing into a pile of luxury bags? But Liu sees it differently. He describes his work as a virus. By entering the commercial world, by collaborating with the icons of capitalism, he inserts his message into the bloodstream of the very beast he is critiquing. When a fashion magazine publishes his photo, they are publishing a Trojan horse. People come for the cool optical illusion. They stay for the uncomfortable realization that the human being has vanished. He is not selling out. He is infiltrating. He is showing that even in the highest echelons of wealth and glamour, the individual is still just a prop, a mannequin, a ghost. Today, Liu Bolin continues to stand still. He stands still in front of glaciers melting due to climate change. He stands still in front of mountains of plastic waste. He stands still in front of the flags of the United Nations. His hair is grayer now than it was in Soja village. The hours of standing frozen have taken a toll on his body, but the power of his work remains undimmed. In a loud, fast, screaming world, Liu Bolin offers us the power of silence. He teaches us that visibility is a trap. We think that because we can take a selfie, we matter. We think that because we can tweet, we are heard. But Liu Bolin asks us to look closer. He asks us to look at the walls, the shelves, the slogans, and the screens that surround us. He asks us to see how small we are against the machinery of the state and the economy. He disappears so that we can finally see. When you look at Liu Bolin photograph, you are playing a game of hide and seek. You scan the image looking for the shoes, the outline of a hand, the shadow of a head, and when you finally find him, the moment of recognition that, aha, it is a spark of connection. You have found the human in the chaos. And in finding him, perhaps, you find a little bit of yourself hiding in plain sight, waiting to be seen.